Hey guys, glad you're here for the help video for quiz 2.10. Alright, here's your need to know info. Let's do a quick review of units because that helps you remember this formula that we're just now learning. So if you're dealing with side lengths are just in regular units, like inches or meters or centimeters. Perimeter is also just regular units. You don't raise it to any power, you just add up the sides. So it'd be like 40 inches or 40 centimeters or 40 whatever. Area is when your units change. If you multiply to like base times height, your units are going to become units squared. And then for volume, it's going to be units cubed. And it's kind of cool that like even in the word, a square is a two-dimensional figure. That's when you find area. And a cube is a three-dimensional figure. And that's when you're finding volume. So if you can remember your units, then you will be able to easily remember what to do to your scale factor. If you're dealing with perimeter, you just keep the scale factor the same. Notice perimeter, it's not raising it to any power. If you're dealing with area, you want to take your scale factor and square it because area, the units are squared. And if you're dealing with volume, then you want to take your scale factor and cube it. Because in volume, the units are cubed. So that's kind of an easy way to remember what to do to your scale factor. Just remember what your units are. So now let's jump into our quiz. It says prism A is similar to prism B. The volume of prism A is 4,320 centimeters cubed. What is the volume of prism B? All right, that centimeter cubed is really going to help us because what that tells us is we need to find our scale factor and cube it. All right, so if I look at my side lengths here, that side length is 12 and its corresponding side length is 6. So I need to ask myself, okay, how did I get from those two numbers? What is my scale factor? What did I multiply by to get to those numbers? So I'm going to go ahead and label 6 as my pre-image and 12 as my image. And to go from 6 to 12, I have to multiply by 2. So my scale factor is going to equal 2. And now we're going to use our formula to compare the volumes. So I want the image volume, which was 4,320, over the pre-image volume, which we don't know yet. So I'm going to go ahead and let that equal x. And I'm going to set that equal to the scale factor cubed. And in this case, I have to use cube because I'm dealing with volume. Volume is always cubed. So 2 cubes, that's the same thing as 2 times 2 times 2. Or you can type it in your calculator, but 2 cubed is 8. So I'm left with this ratio equals 8. And now we can solve it like we did all of the rest of the triangle unit. We can set it up as a proportion and cross multiply. So I could cross multiply here. All I did was put a 1 underneath my 8 to make it a fraction, and now I'm going to cross multiply. So 8 times x is 8x. 4,320 times 1 is just 4,320. Divide each side by 8. And x equals 540. And remember, we're dealing with volume, so that's centimeters cubed. All right, let's try another one. The two rectangular prisms are similar. What is the volume of the larger rectangular prism? So since they're similar, again, they have to have a scale factor. They have to multiply by something. So let's check out and figure out our scale factor. So we have 5 and we have 15. I'm going to go ahead and label this one the pre-image and this one the image. And then I'm going to ask myself, how did I go from 5 to 15? What did I multiply by to make that scale factor happen? And in this case, I had to multiply by 3, so my scale factor is 3. It's getting 3 times bigger. All right, then I'm going to set up my ratio. I want my image volume, which I don't know yet, over my pre-image volume, which is 60. And I'm going to set that equal to the scale factor cubed. Again, because I'm dealing with volume, and volume is units cubed. So 3 to the third power, that's like multiplying 3 times 3 times 3, which is 27. And we're going to set that equal to x over 60. And I also want to show you how to type that in your calculator as well. So if I want to do 3 to the third power, I'm going to hit 3, and then I want to raise it. So I'm going to use this up arrow, and then I'm going to hit the third power. So 3 to the third power is 27. I want to show you in a computer calculator as well. Oh, let me clear that, if I can remember how. Okay, so to do it in the computer calculator, you would type in 3, and then you want to raise it to some number. And in this case, we want to raise it up to the third power. So 3 raised to the third power equals 27. So that's what button you would have to use if you were using a computer calculator. All right, so now that we know how to type in a cube in the calculator, let's finish out this problem. So I'm going to put a 1 underneath it, and then I'm going to cross multiply. 1 times x is x. 60 times 27 is 1,620. And there's nothing else to solve here. X is already by itself. So that is the volume that we are missing. That's the volume of the image. All right, two cylinders are similar. The volume of the larger cylinder is 343 feet cubed. The volume of the smaller cylinder is 125 feet cubed. The height of the smaller cylinder is 5. What is the height of the larger cylinder? So for this one, there's a couple different ways you can approach it. The way I first approached it was I said, okay, my smaller cylinder has a volume of 125, and it has a height of 5. And I said, okay, I know I'm dealing with volume, which is units cubed, so I took 5 and I cubed it, and that equals 125. So then I kind of thought backwards, and I said, okay, well, if I know 5 cubed is 125, then I know for the larger cylinder, the height has to be cubed to equal the volume of the larger cylinder. So I kind of worked in a weird way on this one, but I basically just asked myself what number cubed equals 343. Or you could take the cube root of each side, and that would give you that the height equals 7. So 7 is our height in this problem. If that backwards way of thinking just totally blew your mind, I'll show you how to use our original formula. I just think the formula in this case was a little bit more difficult for me than just kind of thinking through it. But let me go ahead and show you that. So, and I do not love this method, so I'm going to show it to you pretty quickly. But if I let's just let the bigger one be the image and the smaller be the pre-image. I would do the image volume over the pre-image volume. And I would set that equal to the scale factor cubed, but I don't know the scale factor yet. And remember, the formula for scale factor was image over pre-image. So I'm going to have to take my image, which I don't know, my image height, and then I'm going to have to set it over my pre-image height. And I have to cube that. So to solve for x, I would get rid of the cube first, so I would cube root each side. The cube root of 343 is 7. The cube root of 125 is 5. The cube and the cube root would cancel, leaving you with x over 5. And then from here you can cross multiply, or you might just be able to see that the top has to be 7 in order for those two fractions to be equal. But let's just say you did cross multiply. 5x equals 35, divide each side by 5, and you would get 7. Now again, I don't love that method, so I think that you should try to reason through it like this. I think that's a little bit easier. Alright, a rectangle has a width of 3 centimeters and a height of 10 centimeters. What is the effect on the perimeter when the dimensions are multiplied by 10? So remember, when we're dealing with perimeter, we're just dealing with regular old units, right? The units don't change. You don't have to square it or cube it or anything. It's just regular units. So if you're multiplying the dimensions by 10, the perimeter is also going to get multiplied by 10. So let's say your original perimeter was 5. Your new perimeter is going to be 50. You're just going to multiply it by 10. A rectangle has a width of 8 meters and a length of 7 meters. How does the area change? Okay, so for area, our units are squared. So if we're using a scale factor, if we're multiplying it by 5, we need to take that scale factor and square it. And that new area is going to be 25 times bigger. So the area will increase by a factor of 25. So to be successful on these, you really just need to remember your units and what power that unit gets raised to, and then you can pretty much go from there. Y'all, good luck on this quiz.